distribution platform through which this new generation of consumers does get their media. When you look at the potential for brand equity generation, Netflix is still a subscription service. In my own opinion, Twitch is way more promising in some regards than Netflix. And indeed, this was data from a couple years ago when Amazon acquired Twitch, paid a bunch of money for them. A lot of people wanted to know what was going on. And the New York Times around that time pointed out that at its peak hours, Twitch is garnering as many total viewers as a lot of these much better known cable TV networks that some were paying for in subscription. In a way, this was a big harbinger of the previous result that we talked about as cable TV has continued to decline. Now, again, this isn't necessarily meaningful as a direct comparison because there are a lot of different titles and games that these Twitch viewers are being split among. It's not necessarily informative to compare these numbers to any one organization, but I do think that the point is there. And by the way, this is also the reason that I'm very excited for Nielsen getting into esports. So I saw a few people the other day tweet about there was an announcement that Nielsen had gotten into esports and was planning to provide data for esports analysis. That's incredibly important. As an economist, Nielsen is the provider of some of the most reliable and important data sets that we have in economics. When you go back to the data sets that are used to analyze those purchase decisions, as we talked about in the early days of brand equity being studied, that was Nielsen scan, or continues to be Nielsen scanner data. And it's very important. We generally in esports, we don't get reliable data or industry metrics like this except around the time that some big event like Amazon buying Twitch occurs and the big boys like the New York Times get interested. The rest of the time, we don't necessarily have good industry data that's publicly available. I think Nielsen will help that out a lot. I think that esports consultancy over the next few years is going to gain a lot in value and a lot in credibility as that data becomes available and serious economists can do thorough analyses of this industry like we do for others. So let's take a look. Specific observations for Dota 2, since I know a lot of you will know me from Dota 2 and will come here looking toward that title. So as you guys who are familiar with this particular game already know, there is a heavy emphasis on players over organizations. Many players, I think we can all think of examples, do not value or develop their own personal brands. Now, some of the players who had been almost notoriously disdainful of this in the past, I'm talking about you, Jackie, have actually gone a long way in the last year or so to really building their own personal brand and being a lot more welcoming to their fans, and to disdainful of this in the past, I'm talking about you, Jackie, have actually gone a long way in the last year or so to really building their own personal brand and being a lot more welcoming to their fans and to potentially to external sponsors. So I think as the current generation of superstar players is growing up, we are seeing some of that happening naturally over time, but you still see live streaming agreements. The idea that you're going to join a team and you're going to commit to streaming X hours a week under that organization's flag. They're very common in other esports. They're not common at all in Dota. And I think that's a big missed opportunity. I think that can add a lot of value. Now, again, there are very good economic incentive reasons why that's the case. In Dota, the vast majority of most players' salary is going to come from prize money as opposed to guaranteed compensation from the team. So if you compare to other esports like LoL, like CSGO, relative to those, the share of prize money as of player total compensation is much larger in Dota. So players tend to pay a lot more attention to Valve in particular, and to some extent to these tournament organizers, than they do to sponsoring organizations. I think that the major and minor system could really help that there's going to be, naturally, as there are more events, there's a more structured calendar throughout the year. I think that there's going to be more incentive to go and work with a team sponsor that's going to provide you a steady flow of resources. I've seen a number of teams in the last couple of years, there's an attitude in a number of teams or players that I consider to be, pretty good, that, hey, we're going to save some strats for TI. We're going to sort of take a few events off and then really try hard as, May, June, and July roll around and we're on that TI patch. And I think a number of teams have discovered in the last couple of years that it's not so easy to turn that switch on and off, that really winning a TI requires a sustained effort throughout the season. I think nowhere do you see that more than the last 3 TI champions, that investment throughout the course of the season, never taking an event off and growing your team and growing your individual players. That's how you win TI, not just that really intensive boot camp and you find a sponsor that's willing to support you just for a couple of months. All right. The other things, we've had a real problem that I've talked about in other places with the top teams in some ways are disincentivized. We're disincentivized from competing under the major system because so much of the prize money was tied up in the majors and TI. Valve made pretty clear with their selections that lands were all that mattered. So online play and a lot of these smaller league plays, sorry about that again, guys, all right, end up getting de-emphasized relative to these larger events. I think the new major and minor system is going to help with that. And I do think that that regulated schedule is going to help a lot of the sponsors that that participate in other esports but either have been out of or been reluctant to get back into Dota 2. I've already actually gotten a couple feelers from organizations saying, hey, we're in either other esports. We saw your video on the new major system. We're actually thinking about maybe getting back in. And that I view as a very positive sign. That said, I will end on a cautionary note. If you are a player or thinking of becoming a pro player, this is actually a time to be very careful because many of the new sponsors entering the space are going to care about certain aspects of a player or a team's pre-existing image that maybe the community at large does not. Those memes that we all know and love, don't let your memes be dreams, but don't let your memes destroy the potential that you have to build a powerful brand. And that's, again, where I think teams and organizations, the advice of a manager, all right, Beef in particular does a great job for Complexity doing this. And I know Complexity is one of, it's an organization that I've worked with that does a great job in encouraging their players to develop their own personal brand as well as contributing to the success of the organizations. I really want to see more organizations in Dota 2 and more players working with such organizations that are going to provide that. I think it's going to contribute a lot to the stability and the success of the scene going forward. All right, so we touched on a lot of issues here. Again, if you're interested in expanding on any of these points or just want to hear about another topic throughout esports, please do let me know in the comment section below. This is Nahaz. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hello, everybody. This is Nahaz.
It's a mirage or a chance to fulfill my mission. A river in a dry land, the left is in a lost land. A heartbeat for demon, always is in a strange land. I'm giving the balance, but I'm standing on razor's edge now. Real quick, all my life is over. One strike just a pain, then I'm out of his field of vision. Don't ask why I'm ready, but I'm ready to strike him down now. I just saw the new stars, there's no time for indecision. A river in a dry land, the left is in a lost head. When the hope of new beginnings burned our feet, now we need it, a heartbeat for demon, oasis in a siege land. Remind us we're here for creating new lives, creating rivers in the desert.
Hello?
Clockwork. Clockwork, come bottom with me.
Let's seek her safe lane. Weaver off.
Dude, just go secret mid, man. It's free win.
Alright, I'll go mid, I'll go mid.
Stop, please. Think in time. No. Okay, you're not going mid. He already buys on.
I'll go bottom.
Why not seek her safe lane, dude? And then you go off lane with Weaver. I go with you.
He's against Batrider. I don't want that at all.
No. Let's just do Clock and me bottom. It's
Yeah,
good.
I agree.
I rate bottom and Clock.
Yeah.
Alright, whatever. Here, take a ward.
We're not putting Bloodseeker against Batrider. That's horrible.
Is it?
Yeah, it's impossible to win.
Bottom. Leave that.
I mean, you can just trust me. I play up both heroes a lot.
And be back. Apple try. iCarly, hi. Hi, iCarly.
That's Indrin.
Yo, once you get level 2 top Aresta, you can do whatever you want. I don't think I need help beyond level 2.
Block this big one. What's up, Brown? Mierda.
Hey man, I'm gonna max my first spell and then give it to Rasta, and then he's gonna go Etherlands and Agadims, and it's gonna rack him. Does it work?
Are you stupid? The fuck? You can take early wish though.
Yeah, let's not Eternals.
Don't lag. Solo zone.
I mean, Sword Break should be up first. Sword Break should be here.
There's a ward here for sure.
He's gonna kill you.
どこから話せばいいんだろう待ちくたびれても終わりだなんて言わせないから
You wanna go mid with the Rasta? I think you can just get the rune and go.
Envy, don't worry. Envy, don't worry, I'll carry you.
I don't want to dueling up here because he's gonna stay here while Spirit Breaker if you stay top.
There's a reason that we call the magnetic wave.
Bottom lane is a lot, I think.
So I know ために泣けるのは君